Jack, what's up? Thank you. I was kind of like a little bit daunted or hit that I would be standing here in front of everybody. But it's nice to be here, though. It's nice to be invited to moderate this. My crew here, my team. We started this in, I think, March 2020. Well, after the February 17, when they signed the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the Grand Lines, which was signed with the Quebec government and the Cree Nation government, which would study a possible railroad going from Matagami to Washkagonish at 257 to La Grande, then La Grande to Wamuxtui. And also the revamping and refurbishing of the highways for all the access roads and a new road to Wamuxtui. This was part of the study, and our team was fully involved in it. And so that's where we're going to start our discussion from. So I would like to say a very, the study has been completed, and you can look it up on the internet. It's 10,000 pages plus, so we're just going to touch on it. We're not going to sit here for the next week, But it's really, really, it's thoroughly done, and I'm really, really proud of it that we got together and were able to accomplish something that originated from the Cree Nation, because it was a Cree idea, I would say, from Abel Bosom when he was the Grand Chief at that time, and he was the leader in getting this done and being able to get the idea of having a railroad. And the study is done, and this is what we're going to be talking about: the logistics, the travel, the infrastructure of what was studied in there. So I'm just going to say, these people have a lot of experience with the Cree Nation, with the EU. Paul Wate is with WSP Indigenous Relations. He's been around for 16 years working with the Native people. Alessandro is with Stantec, and he's a sector manager, and he's been working with the Crees and also Indigenous people for the past 25 years, and Reggie Niposh is a former chief of the Ojibwe First Nation, the Cree Nation near Chibougamau. So, Nwajima Nijio. And Mark Dunn, he's with Sim Consulting, and he's been working with the Crees and Niskamoon for 20 years. So I would like to, acknowledge them and be able to say thank you for the experience, because I was there right from the beginning, and we were just thrown in, with all the we were information officers from from all the Cree communities, and we were just getting together, and we were just well, here you go, do what you do, and we grew from there. It was an experience that, for me, I'm just going to say that it was just like going back to school. And obtaining a degree at the end, that's how much I've learned and how much, research that I did. And I've seen that guy's name many times along the way, Dr. Ted Moses, with the James Bay Agreement, and the things that the Crees walked, the journey, the path that they took to be here today, and be able to manage something like this, to be organizing an event like this. It's pretty amazing, where the Crees have walked from, and I'm really proud of that. So we're gonna start now. The northern regions, there, the logistics and there's an immense potential for development. Especially in mining, and it's really, really something that you have to really think about everything when you come to do something up in the north, because you're working in the bush, and there's a lot of mosquitoes in the summer, and really, really harsh environment too. During the winter months, you'll have to be equipped to be able to cross lakes and be able to, if you're going to be doing drilling. You'll have to plan it way ahead of time because it's like a summer activity. But of course, basically you transport your stuff during the winter. So and with the Grand Alliance, the mandate was not to study that part, but it's related to it. It's all related. Everything that to be able to transport anything, raw materials, we're going to need some kind of system to transport. And the Billy Diamond Highway and the routes in North, they're not enough. The Billy Diamond Highway is already falling apart, and it just got recently, refurbished, and it's already starting to break up. So just think if those big trucks come along at 381. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that. So it's demanding. So we'll be looking at the impact of collaboration and partnership in this vital area, exploring opportunities for growth, innovation, and sustainability. Through our discussions, we'll take a close look at the ways in which collaboration between public, private, and community players can strengthen supply chains, improve connectivity, and stimulate economic development in our communities. We'll also look at the challenges we face and the innovative solutions we can consider to overcome them. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to start with Reggie Niposh. So Reggie, what are the main logistical challenges specific to the Nordic context, and how can collaboration between the various stakeholders help to overcome them?
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. We want to thank the Secretariat for inviting us. We're not the bad people, the Grand Alliance. We have a good team. I just want to say it's an honor for me to be with my colleagues here, and a lot of experience behind what they've done for our Cree Nation. Mind you, the Grand Alliance is a study, and I want to make that very clear. And it was an honor and a privilege for me to be part of the team. For me, in terms of collaboration, I'll talk from a former chief. The Cree Nation at large, especially those that live on the land, they're very knowledgeable of their territory, and they have a lot of care, because for us Crees, that's our background. That's our livelihood. And I could probably say the same thing to the Anishinaabe. Their territory is what feeds our families, our children, and our great-grandchildren. I want to share a story about my grandfather, Reggie Bosom. He raised me when I was a young boy since birth. There's a tradition where children are taken from families, and if the family has too many children, somebody else would come in and help. So that was the role that I fell into, raised by my grandfather. And he was what they call a pathfinder. And a pathfinder is, when you look at the history of Chibougamau, before it was built in the 1950s, there was a trading post in Chibougamau. And he would take a group of them, would take a canoe from Chibougamau and paddle all the way down south to northern Montreal called Ascalagnon. And then they would travel by canoe to Chibougamau, take the goods there, and then after that, this is in the summer, and then they would paddle all the way to Fort Rupert, which is Waskaganish today. And by the time they reached there, that's where they would deliver the goods. Mind you, there was no GSP, there were no maps. They knew the land. And that is why our Cree people are very concerned about development. They're not anti-development, they're anti-destruction. And that's the main message that I heard from our people. And we also want to make sure that our younger generation will follow pursuit in taking care of the land. So I think collaboration has to begin at the heart of the people, with the leadership and also with the people that are impacted in any development. So that's what I want to say.
Reggie. So I understand what you mean, because I get sometimes when I was doing talking and doing presentations, I would get emotional, because that's where I come from. I come from UC, and that's my homeland, and I care about the people. And I understand we need a healthy environment to be a healthy communities, and that's it. So Mark, can you answer, what have you learned, with the challenges in the northern environment?
Thank you very much for being here. Actually, I wonder if the people in the back, the technicians, could put the PowerPoint on that we had prepared. We just have basically some photos to show. It's a carousel of photos. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just put it on the loop. You could just automatically. Thank you. So we're going to just show you some photos from a lot of different events that we did as part of the Grand Alliance study. And like Christopher said, this started in February 2020, and of course COVID happened, so that delayed everything. So we didn't actually start until a year later. And basically, it was funny. At one point, I was on Zoom on a public meeting, and a lot of people were saying things about the Grand Alliance, and at that point it was just me. And they were saying they're building stuff already, and I was like, no, just me with my keyboard typing. And so we built up this study that was a very large scale study spread over 30 years. And what I learned was, very similar to what Reggie said, that people were very open to the discussion once they understood that we're not building anything. We're just, considering different options. The transportation network today, the way it is today, was conceived to extract resources and to move workers. So the communities were not really central to the planning. So when we did this study, we wanted to change it. How do we put the communities in the center of the planning? But recognizing, the region will always be a resource region. There will always be extractive industries, but how do we sort of move the needle a bit more? What we learned was that roads have become the center of Cree land use now. They have become what the rivers were historically, right? People would, the original highways were the rivers that people would paddle up and down. Today, where there are roads, people now go up and down the roads, and they build their camps there, and these are the base for their land use. So any changes to these roads needs to involve all the hunters and trappers and fishers so that they can plan as a consequence, and that they can share their knowledge with us. And in fact, they were very eager to share their knowledge. They were very happy to tell us what they knew, and they had a lot of great insights because they're on the land all the time. So they see, this section of road is the road where there are always issues. This is the section of road where you always have washouts. Maybe you could do it this way. Maybe you could do it that way. And we, as part of our study, we listened to them and took note of their suggestions and designed something as a consequence. So it was really a nice example of how collaboration can work. It takes more time. It takes a lot of discussions. It takes a lot of times overcoming a lot of initial barriers and getting to know people and building relationships. But it's worth it, because at the end you have a product that is much more predictable for everybody and much more sustainable. And so I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I was looking at the photos, and I seen something from Sesame, and I was there sitting there, and I was like getting organized, and I was putting up these maps that we had, little like they were wrapped in plastic. And I went to the washroom and came back. One of them was gone. It must have been pretty valuable for somebody. It made me smile a little bit when I saw it there. So, Mr. Cirilla, you have the opportunity to work with various groups in the communities. Can you tell us about the tangible benefits of partnerships in northern logistics in terms of cost reduction, improved efficiency, and sustainability?
Thanks, Chris. Well, when we first began looking at this study, we quickly realized how complex and how enormous this study. You're all familiar with the territory. It's extremely huge, and given the scope of what was asked from the different teams, we quickly realized we need boots on the ground. We have to be present on the territory. We don't have a choice. There's no way around it. We have to do it right. So the first thing we did is, obviously, we're based in Abitibi and offices in Montreal, but we do have various partnerships in the north, but it wasn't enough. So we partnered with other firms that have actual ongoing partnerships in the north. One of them being défis. We were part of a consortium, just a 2-minute thing, a consortium where 3 firms grouped together: Stantec, Sistra, which is a railway engineering firm, very familiar with remote areas, and also défis, which had at the time 8 partnerships in the Cree territory, and maybe a dozen others elsewhere in Quebec. So we knew that we'd be able to cover the area a lot more efficiently. And given the scope, we didn't have much time, so we had to have efficient interventions. And on our team, we also included Cree members, which were present on the territory, along the coast, as well as inland. And that allowed us really to profit from the network, given that also each of the communities had a Cree information officer working for them, which really knew the territory. And that was one of the things that really impressed us, is how well the people on the land know the land. And we came to realize that there's over 350 Cree companies out there. So we really tagged into that and tried to profit as much as possible from all those connections, all those networks. And you mentioned sustainability. One of the things that we like to do, obviously, was involve the people that are the companies that are on the territory for all kinds of things, for logistics, for travel, to accompany us into the field when we were doing the different investigations. We had to cover over 1,500 kilometers of roads, and just on our phase, because the project was separated into 2 phases, actually 3 phases, over 300 kilometers of railway, actually 500 kilometers of railway with the Gravet-Chapet line. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without the people on the territory efficiently. And going back to sustainability, one of the things that we managed to do, and it was a great experience, and I hope we'll see the pictures, was part of the archaeology that we had to do on the field in Mistissini. And again, there's always a time frame in every study, eh? And we could have still been out there doing studies and looking at it and going in depth. And that's one thing that we really realized. Mark and Reggie mentioned it, but the families, the tallymen, the people, they want to talk about it, and they're very passionate about the territory and about their history too, and their heritage, and we can go on and on. And one of the things that is different in this study is that we had the opportunity to do that. We had the opportunity to listen to these people and put things down in writing. And going back to the archaeology, well, we, along with the Cree Cultural Center in OJ, put a training program where 10 students from Mist-Sini were on the field with us for a couple of months doing the field research on the field, doing the archaeology. So that was beautiful to see. And hopefully, it sparked something amongst that youth.
Thank you so much. I'm getting flashbacks of the stuff that they talk about. I'm getting flashbacks and thinking, I get a smile on my face. Or, there was my late friend Brian Fireman worked with us doing drilling along to Great Whale, amongst us, and their helicopter got sort of like broken down, and they couldn't fly, so they got stuck there. And one of the locals, he said, you know where you are? It's a very sacred spot. And just to tell you about it, the Cree of Wamukstwi, they know that area, and they say it's very sacred, and as if something happened there for a reason, as if we were disturbing something. But I just said, did you say a prayer? My friend passed about a couple of months ago, and me and Mark worked with him pretty closely, and he was a musician. Cree Rising, you can look him up. So anyway, let's move on. Mr. Wates, can you explain what is it that you do, and what are the concrete examples where collaboration between your organizations and Cree communities has led to significant innovations or adjustments in the design of logistics infrastructures to better meet local needs?
Miigwech, Christopher, it's a long question, and
yeah, I know.
So I can give a long answer, I guess. I'm very happy to be here and share the stage with my esteemed colleague. I just wanted to mention that it was a real teamwork, these studies for 3 years. So I'm going to come back to this a little bit later, because I just want to mention what we did in at WSP for this for the phase 2 and 3 of the Lagon Alliance studies. So when we saw the RFP, we right away see that we would need a Cree partner to do this. There is no way that we're going to do this by ourselves without any Cree partners. So we from the very start of the proposal phase, we partner up with Mamu Consultant, which is a Cree partner, Cree firm specialized in consulting, research, and management as well. So they were involved in almost every meetings at the proposal phase to write the proposal together, basically, just to adapt our services in WSP with, knowing the needs and the priorities that this project would need, and based mostly on the innovation that it was proposed, right in the terms of reference from CDC, from the Cree Development Corporation. So we wanted to follow this leadership and match this innovation proposal as much as we can, and I think we did with our partner that brought capacities, not just in terms of local expertise, but also management expertise at every level of the studies. And it was very key for us, and I think it was key for the whole team. And coming back to the team that we had, I think we need to mention as well that, our different teams, Alexandro and us, we did a lot of work together as well in many parts of the studies. So it was not just separate work. We did a lot of things, the two teams together. It was challenging, but it did work, and it was a very good results at the end. So we are very proud of this, and I just want to mention also, because I was also in charge of the social and environmental part of the study for phase 2 and 3, that we definitely relied also on the Cree input for this. Like the Mamu brought us also like a network of local associates in every communities that we visit. to do the interviews with the land users to make sure that the conversation between the land users and our team was in Cree, between Crees, and then was translated to us, the team in the back, to do to basically take the notes and did the analysis, and then going back to them for the validation process. So it was a very important process to match the innovation brought by CDC. And one thing also, maybe Mark, you can confirm if it's right, but one thing that a very important that we had from a CIO, from Errol Mianskum, from the CIO in Mistissini, right at the beginning of the first interview, land users interviews round, he basically told us that we should not use the word consultation. We should use the word engagement, because this is not consultation as it was done in the past for the last 15 years. So to separate our work from this heritage of development, practices that was not welcomed by the Cree communities, we should use engagement. And I think consultation doesn't appear in any pages of the reports that we have. So this is a very small example, but I think it's a powerful example of how we set the difference for this work for 3 years, basically.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really, it opened a lot of minds and eyes to be able to engage. Mark, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think so I just wanted to add that, so what we were doing was a series of feasibility and pre-feasibility studies looking at different transportation options, because we knew that the transportation network in its current form will have a very difficult time accommodating what's coming, especially in terms of mining and heavy transportation, the transportation of raw materials that's going to come with that. But people are used to being told at the end of a process, right? You go to the community, everything's already set up, and you're just like, hey, what do you think? And that's like a formal consultation, and people are given maybe a couple of days to give their opinion, and a lot of times it just takes that much time just to wrap their mind around everything that they're looking at. We are like 7 to 10 years out of anything being built. So we are way ahead of time, and I would argue through this experience that you need that time for people to really understand not just what, but why and how, and then get them to contribute. A lot of times people really only started contributing after the third conversation, right? The first 2 conversations were they were just trying to figure out what it is we're doing, and then they would start, and they start often, they're not like, I want this and that. They're like, well, what, do you think you could do this? And then we would say, yes, I think we can do that. And then he said, well, if you could do that, can you do this too? And then, and then it just keeps going like that. The other thing is, I remember we had a conversation at the beginning about what would we call it, right? Because there's nothing actually being built. Everything's in theory. So the Crees on our team were debating how they would say this, right? Because it's not an actual thing that's going to be built. We're just looking at something in theory. All these are part of the process, and I agree with what Paul and Alessandro said. There's no way that we could have done this without, the community information officers, with the liaison officers, and also with the active participation of people in the study. So it just shows that, collaboration is a good thing. It's a good thing for everybody. It's not just something that you do because you have to. It really does add value to whatever you are undertaking.
I'd just like to add to that, Mark, and when we're talking about different stakeholders, we also had the opportunity and thankfully from other entities like the Ministry of Transport, SDBJ, Hydro-Quebec, the Cree Health Board. These are all entities, Cree School Board also, these are all entities that participated and that had a wealth of information for us. So, it was really a collaborative at all the levels.
Hagada, Taskumdan. So listen to, I want to get your view with this next question. It's very long as usual, but listen. Has your collaboration had an impact on the way you work? Have you changed certain approaches to, for example, to better integrate cultural and social considerations into the management and operation of logistics infrastructures, thus contributing to greater sustainability of projects in the north? Reggie.
Well, for me, working with the Cree Nation, you deal with different personalities and also different views from the leadership of their territory, whether it's Saskatchewan or Mistissini. And, you have to learn to understand where they're coming from. And that was something I had to learn. And, there's a great depth of experience and knowledge of the elders when you talk to the elders of exactly what is it they're talking about. It took me a while to digest too, in terms of protection of the land, protection of the one that really got me was the water, because water is something, it's a commodity for me. I find, that's something that we all need. And then when we see mines polluting the water, like that's the experience that we had in Chibougamau and where I'm from, Ojibougamau. We had the lakes contaminated, and the sediments that our fish were impacted. That's part of our diet. So it was our elders in Ojibougamau that brought that to our attention. And as a young man and as growing up as a leader, I had to learn from their point of view, and it took me a while until I understood that the land is very, it's important to us. So in terms of collaboration, I have to go back to what I said earlier. I think it's really important that the leaders understand their people, especially, there's a ton of knowledge too in the Cree communities. And like they mentioned about the entities, the Cree School Board, Cree Health Board, you also have the economic people that we talked to. And I was very impressed of their perception. I mean, you had different type of people, those who are pro and con. And, we had to be neutral. And that was something I had to learn too, not to debate and argue. Just take it in, take it in. And sometimes there's things thrown at you, and also people assuming that, hey, you already got the project. And we kept saying, it's not a project, it's a study. And I had to tell our team here, and I appreciate Mark. He was the one that spearheaded the whole team. And, it's something that I've learned is like what they were talking about, working as a team. And also our chiefs and our leaders, I appreciate some of them that came by and, gave us their support, and not loud, but they just told us, no, listen to the people. I guess on one hand, they want to be revoted. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Well, look at the time still. We still got 2 questions. And Mark, you're next.
Well, I think the for me it was really important that everybody as a team, we all kind of saw ourselves in what we were doing. We didn't want it to be like engineers here, economic people here, everybody else, including myself over there. No, we want it to be all in the same room together. But in order to do that, you need to sit down and and help each other understand how you look at things. And I think by doing that internally, then it was easy for us to go out to the communities and listen to what land users had to say and what leadership had to say. And like Reggie said, not everybody agreed on everything we said, and a lot of people, you know, the thing about transportation is that everybody uses transportation networks. So no matter what you do to it, everybody is going to have access to those transportation networks. So people were concerned about, you know, if we improve the transportation network, aren't we just opening the door to people that we don't necessarily want on the territory? And that's a fair question, right? So from there we say, okay, well, how can we do it in such a way that there's still a certain amount of control, and it's not just a free-for-all? So the discussions went in all sorts of directions, but we realized that it's important that that happens. It has to happen. That if we said to people, no, sorry, we're not talking about that, we're just talking about, you know, the road, then people would have disengaged in the process. Chesapeake wanted to talk about their experience with the La Grande complex. I mean, it's completely understandable. It's a massive project that still, you know, the still repercussions are still being felt today. West Wannabe wanted to talk a lot about forestry and their experience with the forestry industry. This is part of the process, right? To learn, okay, even though we're not talking about forestry directly, tell us, you know, what your experience has been, what can we learn from that experience? So that was that was a lot of fun, and just learning about, you know, really technical sides on the one hand, and then getting land users to tell us stories that were sometimes really funny. And you know, one person told me a story about how somebody at his camp needed to go get cigarettes, and he was able to conjure spirits, and he came back an hour later with cigarettes. And don't ask questions. It just, that's the way it happened. But clearly he has a good way of transportation. But this is all, you know, this has enriched our experience, and it just shows that everybody has a part to play in this process, and that's the way things should be.
Yeah, okay. Alessandro?
Well, more on a more concrete point of view, you know, we managed to speak to close to 200 families, and you know, we engage them, and they for the most part, and all of them wanted to talk, obviously, and all of them were very open and very passionate, but they are the ones that dictated, well, should we turn left or should we turn right? Where should this, you know, new road go? Where should this railway go, if ever there will be a railway? So they were extremely involved, and the best part is that all of this is down on paper, and you know, it's in the records, so you know, we can come back to it. And a lot of times, you know, they'd struggle because they'd want to project themselves 25 and, you know, 30, 40, 50 years into the future, and try to imagine what it would be like. And that's what they're struggling with, because they remember stories of their parents, the former, you know, tallymen, of when they were kids, and when, you know, again, the hydro projects came about and all those other infrastructure projects came about. So they want to be ahead of the game this time, but they'd like to be able to see in the future what would it be like, and they're worried what their families would think of them if they make a decision, you know, today, and what will the repercussions be 50 years down the line. So it's extremely difficult. It was extremely difficult.
Paul?
Yeah. Well, from another consultant point of view, what was amazed is to see how, you know, we had to integrate the Cree land use knowledge upfront to the design process of the proposed alignment, and how, you know, our engineer were not used to it because it was not the standards, and how they clearly, you know, adapt to it and see the benefit of it, and see even that it was a way to de-risk the project, because, you know, the knowledge coming from, you know, at the very early stage, it's easier to work with that than change the design afterwards when the knowledge would have come later. So it was one of the great things to see internally how the engineers say, well, this should be the way we have to work now, especially with indigenous people. And I think the other example that transformed another set of colleagues is the addendum. How the economic especially had to do another, like an addendum to the market study, because the market study was not adapted to the local economic situations of the 10 Cree communities. So they had to, from the request from the Waswanipi chief Irene Posh, we did that, and they had to work in a different, in another way that they used to work with economics, and it brought a lot of challenges for them, but for everybody, because we had to think about economics in a different way, like in indigenous economics, basically, and at the local level, not at the regional level. And I think it brought a lot of knowledge for everyone. And so, yeah, I would say it is another, transformation that brought Lagon Alliance eternally and for the whole team.
Okay, thank you. One more question before we close this session. So it has to be brief, we only have a little bit of time. So building on the previous discussions about current partnerships and their impact on logistical challenges, how do you foresee future collaborations evolving to address these challenges over the next 5 to 10 years? What specific types of projects or initiatives do you believe would be most beneficial in improving logistical capabilities in the North? What a long question.
Okay, I'll try to keep this short. So I think these collaborative relationships where you, from the beginning, where you try and get as much input as you can before you start designing anything, I think is essential. I think the other thing is that, I mean, from my experience, Cree communities are open to lots of things so long as it is harmonious with Cree land use. So these are fundamental questions that need to be asked at the beginning. Can whatever project you're looking at coexist with Cree land use? If it can't, you either have to redesign it or rethink it or, scrap it. But if there's an openness to do that, I think from my experience, the communities are very open to talk about anything.
Anybody else want to answer that?
Well, for me, I think the MOU has demonstrated the importance of Crees sitting at the table, and this was kind of an approach where our Cree Nation was given the opportunity to be part of the study, and that's something that I pretty much liked, and that's something that we also informed our Cree at large that we're in a position to voice our opinion on this study. So that in the MOU really demonstrated that, and I thank our former Grand Chief, Dr. Abel Bosom, who initiated that, and I think it's something that we need to learn also as Crees, that we need to stand behind our leaders and don't be afraid to go talk to them. When I was put into the Legrand Alliance, I didn't know a thing about it, and I had to go see the former Grand Chief and say, could you explain to me what it is? Because I have no clue. And this is where he gave me all the information, what exactly it was, that we were at the table. And that's something that I think our non-native people need to understand. Don't put us on the menu. Thank you.
Yeah, building the North or infrastructures in the North is extremely challenging, as I'm sure a lot of you know already. But there's a lot more opportunities than challenges. This is a time where it's extremely possible for the Cree Nation to mobilize and to take advantage of all of this. And you know, it starts from education and training and internships and partnerships, and this is the time, because you know there's a lot coming, and we just touched, although we did do a lot of work, we just touched the tip of the iceberg. So yeah, it's a good times for the Cree Nation.
I got Paul.
Yeah, maybe I totally agree with you, Alexandro, and I think it's a great point to have like a holistic approach to development, and not just like building or construction. But I would advocate for obviously collaboration, partnership, but you know, as soon as possible. It means, and that's something we try to do in WSP is to talk to indigenous nation communities, entrepreneurs, before even work together, before have any opportunity to work together, just to know each other, just to talk to each other, to be able to see if there is a fit to work in this or that project, and have like a reciprocal relationship. You know, we can definitely, you know, work with indigenous constructants, but we can do that too for them. Like we can, you know, they can hire us to help them work on certain project, and this can be done only if we talk to each other ahead of time, because doing this, we know the capacities, we know the needs, we know the priority of each other, and then we can work in a better way and do, you know, the right thing, as we said earlier.
Hi, thank you so much. This is my team. We worked together for the past 3 years. About Paul Wotes, Alessandro Cirello, Cirella. I you know, like sometimes I got to look at his name again. And Reggie, Chief Reggie Niposh, and of course Mark Dunn. He brought us 246 pieces of chicken. We got stuck in Wabush in one of our trips, and we had to. He did an emergency trip to town to go to feed us to get chicken. Mary Brown's chicken. It was really good. Yeah. And I thank you so much for inviting us, and I really appreciate being given this chance. First, when I first decided to take on this job, I went to an elder, and he said, Christopher, don't worry about it. Just be there and tell our story. Robbie Matthew.